Welcome everyone, as we learn Torah Hashem, Ezra Hashem Yisbarach. As always, we begin with appreciation to TorahAnytime.com for giving us their worldwide platform for Habatzas HaTorah, to Kol HaLashon for its global network, to Torah Communications Network, to the other carriers, YouTube, Facebook, our wonderful Zoomers, and those that are here joining us at our flagship station, Agudas Yisroel Base Zev of Fairways, Lakewood. Tonight, the Shiur is sponsored by one of my wonderful long-time Talmidim, Scott and Bonnie Goldberg. They receive tapes from me, they receive CDs from me, who are sponsoring the Shiur for Scott's father, Shmuel Ruvain ben Binyamin Halevi, and for his paternal grandfather, Binyamin ben Leib Halevi, who's both of them, their yard site is the 18th of Mar Cheshvan. Their neshama should have a great aliyah. They should be Melitza Yosher for their family, for all of us and all of Klal Yisrael, and they should have a lichtige Gan Eden. If you would like to sponsor one of these shiurim, believe me, heard by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people and viewed all over the world, so you could text me at 718-916-3100 or email me at rmmwsi@aol.com. So we know that the pasuk says, "Kishama Elikim el kol anar ba'asher hu sham," that Hashem listened to the voice of Yishmael. As Rashi explains that there is nothing better than the tefillah of the Chayla himself. First of all, that's most passionate. Also, secondly, the Shechina is by the Chayla. And thirdly, sometimes the reason, like we said last week, sometimes the reason why a person gets sick is because the Rabbeinu Shalom wants him to come close with tefillah. It doesn't help if somebody else davens to accomplish that goal. Hashem wants him to come close, or her to come close. So therefore, there's nothing like the tefillah of the sick person himself. But the pasuk says that Hashem listened to the tefillah of Yishmael ba'asher hu sham, the way he was there. And the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Tes Vav Amud Aleph says, Amar Reb Yitzchak ein donin adam el lefi maisim shel oisa shah. We only judge a person according to how he is at the time. Now Rashi and the Ramban explains that this means that even though we know that later on the person will deteriorate or will be a disaster, which was very appropriate to Yishmael, if we would look at what will happen from Yishmael, we'll look about the Hebron massacre, we look at October 7th, we look at the suicide bombings, blowing up buses, blowing up children, right? Then it wouldn't be worth sparing Yishmael. But the Rabbeinu Shalom doesn't look at the future, right? And we only look at Ba'asher hu sham. The Rabbeinu Hananel, however, on the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, says that Hashem only looks at now, he doesn't look at the past. It's interesting. Ba'asher hu sham, he doesn't look at the past, because of course if you would look at the past, well, Yishmael was a mitzachek, and Rashi says that's avodah zarah, gilui arayos, and shvichas damim. So here we have, with merging the pshat of Rashi and the Ramban with the pshat of the Rabbeinu Hananel, the Rabbeinu Shalom only looks at now. He doesn't say, well, it's not worth saving the person because he's going to regress. He's going to, this is only a temporary show, but he's going to, go back to his sinful ways. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't look ahead, nor does he weigh down a person because of all the ills of the past. If he's putting a good face on now, that's what Hashem looks at. And of course, this is one of the reasons that we lane the story of Yishmael on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. People wonder, what are we laning it on the first day of Rosh Hashanah about the Arabs? The answer is that we hope that the Rebbeinu Shalom will treat us the same way, and on Rosh Hashanah he's not going to look at our mistakes of the year before, and he's not going to look if we fall backward the next year, but he only looks at the good face we put forward on Rosh Hashanah itself. Now, this, by the way, is the idea of the Gemara in Kedushin on Def Mem Tes Amud Beis, that if a man says to a woman, Hari at mikudeshesli al manashe ani tzaddik, a man goes over to a woman and says, you should be betrothed to me on the condition that I'm a tzaddik. And he's a well-known Rasha. The Gemara says it's still Suffolk Kedushin, and she'll need a get from him Misafik. But what do you mean? He's a well-known mafioso. And he said only on the condition that he's a tzaddik. So the Gemara says, why? Shema hiro tshuva belibai. Maybe at that moment he was mahar tshuva in his heart. So you see that even though he was a well-known mafioso, he put people in the cement boots. He did all kinds of terrible sins. But maybe at that moment when he profited the Kedushin, he had thoughts of tshuva, and the Rebbeinu Shalom judges the person the way he is now. That's, by the way, a very reassuring idea, that a person could change themselves overnight. A person could always make a fresh start. The idea that people think that they're far gone is an invention of the Yetzer Hara. Because the Yetzer Hara doesn't want us to do tshuva. So therefore he says, are you kidding? With your pekel? With all the things that you did, you're a lost case. There's no such thing as a lost case. Even Yishmael, who was a metzachek, the big three, Hashem judged him favorably by Sherusham, because at that moment he was a tzaddik. And I want to say that there's another great lesson here. The Torah says the mandate of halachta b'drachav, that we should walk in the ways of Hashem. It also says in Oz Yashar, Zeh Keli, this is my God, Va'anvehu, and I will glorify him. And the Gemara says Va'anvehu is a corruption of Va'ani Vahu. The best way to glorify Hashem is to copy him. Because if you show someone that you want to emulate them and copy them, that's the biggest glorification. So we should be like Hashem, and we should treat people the way they are now. It's very important for marriage. A person has tinus on his spouse. If the spouse is good now, then judge the spouse as they are now. Don't look back to the past, because that's natira. That's alav in the Torah, leisito, don't bear a grudge. And don't say, it's probably going to flip back in a few weeks. Same old, same old. No. Don't look in the past, like Rabbeinu Chananel says. Don't look to the future, like Rashi and the Ramban says. Look at now. It's a very big aside. That's being like Hashem. Torah says that Hashem told Avram, V'haleu l'sham la'ayla, bring up Yitzchak as a burnt offering, al achad ha'horim, by one of the mountains. And we know that mountain was Hara Moriah. And that's the future site of the Beis HaMikdash. So on this, the Heilige Divrei Chaim, the sons of Rav, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, Schus Yagam Aleinu, asks an interesting question. He says, why was the Beis HaMikdash built on the site of the Akedas Yitzchak? Why wasn't the Beis HaMikdash built on the site of Har Sinai? And at first glance, that's a very big question. Har Sinai was the place that Hashem revealed himself to all of Klal Yisrael. It was the place that he wed himself to Klal Yisrael. The Sfadim on the night of Shavuos say ksuva, a ksuva document between Klal Yisrael and the Rebbeinu Shalom. So why wasn't the Beis Mikdash on Har Sinai? And we could sweeten this question, because what is the mission statement of the Beis HaMikdash? I remember once one of my fine balabatim, they had a grievance that there was a little too much talking in my shul in Staten Island. Of course, my shul in Staten Island was always the most quiet shul, but they wanted it quieter. And they said to me that the shul's mission statement is shtika b'tefillah. And I said vehemently not. The shul's mission statement is shalom. That's the mission statement of a shul. Because a shul is a mikdash ma'at. Now what does it say in the Beis HaMikdash? It says that the mishmar hayotze, the outgoing mishmar, there were 24 mishmaras, and there was a change of guard on Shabbos. So it says the outgoing mishmar said to the incoming mishmar, Mi sheshikein shmoi b'bayis hazeh, he who has his name dwell in this house, hu yishkein beinechem ava ve'achva shalom v'reis. There should be love, brotherhood, peace, and friendship. That's the mission statement of the Beis HaMikdash. And that's the mission statement of a shul. Remember, we said that the Rambam says, Shekol ha-Torah kula nitna lasa shalom ba'olam. The whole Torah was given to make peace in the world. Shul, which is the place, the sanctuary of our Torah, its mission statement, of course, there should be shtika b'tefillah, there should be kavana b'tefillah, there should be decorum b'tefillah, there should be good amens and amen yeshmei rabbis. There's a lot of rules. But the mission statement is shalom. That's why there's a statement that a shul that is fraught with machlokes will be destined to be sold as a church. It doesn't say that about talking in shul. The mission statement is shalom. So since the mission statement of the Beis HaMikdash is shalom, we would think that the Beis HaMikdash should be built in the place where Klal Yisrael achieved perfect achdus. Har Sinai. Har Sinai, it says, Vayichen Sham, Yisrael, and it says Vayichen, even though there were 600,000 men, it says Vayichen in the singular. So Rashi tells us the famous fact that they were Ki'ish Echad B'Leiv Echad. They were like one man with one heart, complete achdus. Now, since that's the mission statement of the Beis HaMikdash, we would think that the Beis HaMikdash should be on Har Sinai. So it's interesting, the sons of Rav, the Divrei Chaim answers that Hashem wanted the Beis HaMikdash to be built in a place of the ultimate Mesiras Nefesh. Hara Maria, Akedas Yitzchak, was the ultimate Mesiras Nefesh, the ultimate sacrifice. The ultimate sacrifice that Avram Avinu was willing to sacrifice his son, his mezinikel, what he thought was the future of Klal Yisrael, and therefore the Beis Hamikdash, that its essence was sacrifice, should be placed in the place of ultimate sacrifice. That's the opinion of the Divrei Chaim. I just want to add that the Chayr is another reason why the Beis Hamikdash wasn't at Har Sinai, and that is that Har Sinai is not in Eretz Yisrael. Har Sinai is located in the Sinai Peninsula, which is in Egypt. It's not located in Eretz Yisrael. So that would probably be another reason why the Beis Hamikdash is not built on Har Sinai. The Beis Hamikdash had to be in Eretz Yisrael. Now, talking about the Mokum of Har Maria, it says, Vayares HaMokum Mirachak, that Avram, when he was going there to the Akedah, he saw the place from a distance. Now, what does it mean he saw the place? So the Medrash says, it's actually a Psikta Rabasi. The Psikta said that Avram saw clouds around the mountain. Clouds was the Shechina, not only Yaakov. He asked Yitzchak, what do you see? So Yitzchak said, I see clouds. Then he turned privately to Yishmael and Eliezer, and he asked them, do they see anything? And they said no. They didn't see anything. So the Oznaim L'Torah, that's the great Reb Zalman Sorotzkin, Zecher Tzadik L'Vracha, Zchusa Yagin Aleinu, develops a fascinating thing from this psikta. He says, you see that Yishmael has no shaykhis to the Har Habayis, because Yishmael didn't sense any kedusha there. So although they claim, right, in the Golden Mask, they claim that it's their place of holiness as well, we see from this medrash that they have no connection to the Har Habayis, because Yishmael didn't see any holiness there. Now, I mentioned this in the past. Rav Miller asks, why does the Rebbeinu Shalom allow that on this holiest place on earth there should be for so many years a golden tumah? Why does the Rebbeinu Shalom allow that? I told you, when I say in Shemona Esrei, at the end of Shemona Esrei, Asay L'man Shmecha, and Asay means rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. So I have in mind, Asay L'man Shmecha, do it for the sake of your name. Look what people are saying, that in your place there's a golden tumah. Asay L'man Yiminecha, do it for the sake of your might. But asks Rav Miller, why did Hashem make it that way? That on the holiest place of earth, let there be a Belzer, magnificent Belzer Shul. Well, it couldn't be, because we're not allowed to be there. Right? Because you can't go to the place of the Mikdash unless you're tar. And the only way that we could become tar nowadays, we're all Tmei Mason, and the only way that we can become tar is if we're sprinkled on the third and the seventh day with the paraduma, with the ash of the paraduma. We can't bring a paraduma nowadays, right? But why did the Rebbeinu Shalom put a tumah there? So Rav Miller said a very interesting thing. Rav Miller said, if there was no golden mask there, then you would have all kinds of Reform and other clown Jews offering korbanos there. The Rebbeinu Shalom didn't want any korbanos offered at the Beis Hamikdash until Mashiach comes, until Ben David comes, until we have a paraduma. And the only way to guarantee that is that you'll have millions of Arabs promising jihad if we would interfere with that mosque. So that makes sure that nobody should unlawfully and illegally offer korbanos there before it's time. Now, there are many nisyonos that Avram had with the Akedas Yitzchak, many angles. There was, of course, the nisyon that he loved Yitzchak, with a ferocious Ava. And Yitzchak was a perfect man, right, to be an Oila Tamima. So of course, it was a temptation. It was a temptation because Avram knew that Sarah Imenu might not survive the death of Yitzchak. She couldn't even survive the news of it. So it was a great temptation. It was a great temptation because he would have been labeled the biggest hypocrite in the history of mankind. He went around the whole world talking about how heinous and how wrong is human sacrifice. And for him to sacrifice his son, it would wreck all the work he did, all of his life. So there were many nisyonis, many temptations. The Sefer Chaimitz Mincha says another angle of what would be a challenge to Avram. And that is, Avram would be worried that if he would check Yitzchak, then the Litzanei Adar would say, you see, it's a proof me'Avimelech nisabra Sarah, that really Avram wasn't the father. It was Avimelech when he abducted Sarah. And Yitzchak was Avimelech's son, and that's why Avram had no problem to slaughter him. And he would be afraid that that would strengthen the Lisanei Adar. But all of these reasons didn't stop him from doing the Ratzon Hashem. The Malachim, the three Malachim, when they came to Avram's house to give him, to cure him, to give him the news about Sarah, to tell him about Sedaim. Actually, Hashem told him about Sedaim, but they asked Avram, Aye Sarah Ishtecha, where is Sarah, your wife? And Avram answered, Hinei ba Oyel, she's in the tent. So the Ben Ish Chai asks, the Malachim didn't know where Sarah was? Malachim have a very vast knowledge of what's going on. They didn't know. Well, actually, Rashi tells us that the reason why the Malachim said Aye Sarah Ishtecha is not because they were in doubt where Sarah was, but Malamed Shitsnuya Haisa. This teaches us that she was modest, and they wanted to point it out to Avram Lechavava al Bala, in order to endear her to her husband. Now, on an elementary level, this is elementary, but it's a great lesson. If a person could do it in a tzniistic way, to point out to one spouse the benefits of their spouse, that's a good thing. Wow, you're so lucky to have such a spouse. Your children, they're really, really special. Your spouse obviously spends a lot of time in giving them refinement. That's a very good thing. But the Ben Ish Chai asks an interesting question. The Ben Ish Chai asks, Avram was married to Sarah at that point already 74 years. See, Sarah at that time was 89, and she was 15 when she married Avram. Avram was 25, and she was 15. That's what it says in Seder Ayman. So she was married to Avram 74 years, almost 3/4 of a century. You don't think Avram knew that she was a tzenua? When you're married to somebody 74 years, you know if she's a tzenua. So the Ben Ish Chai says a very interesting thing. The Ben Ish Chai says the Torah is telling us, why was Sarah Imenu zoicha to this miracle of having a child at 90? Because she was a tznua. And it's telling us that one of the ways to be zoicha to children is for a woman to be a tznua. There's a very a very, very important Ben Ish Chai. We know that when Sari Imenu heard these Arabs, because she didn't know they were angels, she heard 3 Arabs say that next year she's going to have, at this time, she's going to have a child. So it says, "Vatitzchak Sarah bekirba." She laughed inwardly. Achrei velosi haisali edna. After I'm withered, I'm going to once again become soft and youthful. Va'adoni zaken, and my Lord is also old. Right? To her, it was laughable. So Hashem said to Avram, "Lama zeh tzachaka Sarah." Why is Sarah laughing? There's an obvious question here. Sefer Vayidaber, I told you I'm going to be mentioning things from this wonderful Sefer this year. We know that Sarah Imenu was a Neviah. She was a prophetess. Hashem said to Avram, "Kol ma'ashet tomer Sarah shma b'keilah." Whatever Sarah says, listen to her. She has a direct connection with me. If Hashem was upset that Sarah laughed, why did Hashem tell it to Avram? Hashem should say it to Sarah. Sarah, why did you laugh? Why did she say it to Avram? So, the Sefer Vayidaber gives an interesting answer. He says this is to underscore that a husband is responsible for the behavior of his wife. That's a Gemara. The Gemara says, he doesn't bring the Gemara, but it's Gemara. It says, Ish nitfas al anshe beisai. A husband is held accountable for the behavior of his family. It puts the husband, by the way, in a very delicate position. If he comes home and he hears his wife talking on the phone, Lashon Hara, he's talking to a friend, "Yeah, you wouldn't believe what I saw Faggy do." Speaking Lashon Hara. A man is held accountable, but if he's going to tell his wife, you spoke Lashon Hara, he's going to become a mashkiach. And in yeshiva, a lot of times the mashkiach is the most unpopular person in the yeshiva. Nobody likes to be criticized. You don't want to be a mashkiach with your wife. So you have to do it in a very smart way. The person sees his wife speaking Lashon Hara, you should make a seder, learning with her Hilchos Lashon Hara, and you should say, "Look, I need a review. You want to learn it with me?" If he sees his wife being Mechal Shabbos, and she opens the refrigerator with the light on, she doesn't know. Can't tell her, you're a Mechal Shabbos. I don't know, where'd you come from? You have to be very careful. But on the other hand, a husband is accountable. So therefore, the reason why he said Lama zeh tzachak Sarah to Avram is because Avram is responsible for the emunah of his household. That's one shot. The Ramban says an interesting thing. In the previous Parsha, Hashem told Avram that your name is not Avram anymore, it's Avraham. And Sarai Ishtecha is not Sarai anymore, Sarah Shema. And Avram told, this is before the angels came. Hashem told Avram, Aval Sarai Ishtecha yoledes lecha ben. Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now, if Avram told Sarah Imenu what Hashem said, then she wouldn't laugh, because she already heard it from Hashem. Then it wouldn't be so remarkable. Hashem promised it, changed her name. So Ramban says we see that Avram never told her. It's an interesting Ramban. The Ramban suggests that because Hashem told him to circumcise himself, Avram reacted with zrizas, circumcised himself, then circumcised his slaves, then he wasn't well from the circumcision, so he never got a chance to tell Sarah Imenu. And therefore, Hashem came to Avram with a taina. Lama zeh tzachaka Sarah. I gave you good news. You should have told it to Sarah right away. Of course, that's only one opinion. The opinion of Ramban. It's a big opinion. It's a great Ramban. Zech tzadik v'rachas chus yagan aleinu. But there are those that say that Avram didn't tell Sarah what Hashem said because, as I said, Sarah was a Neviah. If the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted Sarah Imenu to know, he would have told Sarah. The fact that he told Avram and he didn't tell both of them, or he didn't tell Sarah, meant that Hashem didn't want Sarah to know yet. And there's no time on Avram. The same way that we know that when Shem told Rivka the nevuah about her children, right? That you have twins, and V'rav Yavri Tzoyer, and the older one will serve the younger one. Rivka never told that to Avram, to her husband Yitzchak. Same reason, because Hashem, if he wanted Yitzchak to know, he would have told Yitzchak. He gave it to her with a prenatal message, and therefore she never told her husband. So here also, Avram perhaps never told Sarah, even though it was great news, and you should share great news with your wife right away, because Avram said there's obviously a reason that Hashem doesn't want Sarah to know yet. Now, one reason could be that we know that the reason why she was an Akara is Mis'ava HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Tfilas Shel Tzadikim. Hashem wanted the prayers. And maybe Hashem still wanted from her prayers, fervent prayers. Or maybe Hashem wanted to test her. That's also a possibility. That Hashem wanted to test her if she would laugh. So it's not so simple that there was a taina on Avram, but that's the way the Ramban learns. Now, Avram Avinu, when he heard the news of the destruction of Sodom, that was, by the way, very big news. Rav Miller says that in the 5 cities of Sodom and Amorah, there were 3 million people. So the nuking of Sodom was very big news. So Avram Avinu prayed, "Ha'af tispa tzadikim rasha? Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Ulay yesh chamishim tzadikim b'seicha ir. Maybe the 50 righteous. Will you destroy the city if there's 50? Until he goes to 10. Ulay yimatzin sham asara." What's missing over here? There's a blatant omission. Why don't we find that Avram prayed for light? He prays for 50 tzaddikim, 45 tzaddikim, 40, 30, 20, 10. But what about his nephew? What about his wife's brother? Right? Haran is the father of Sarah and light. Why doesn't he pray? Especially since he saw that light was worthy of a miracle, right? Avram went and fought the 4 kings led by Kedar Laomer, who was Nimrod, and he won miraculously and he saved light. So why doesn't it say that he prayed for light? This is a very big question. It's a very big omission. So I did research about this. This is actually the first time I did research on this. So there's a Targum Yonasan ben Uziel which I found. It says, Vayifnu misham ha'anoshim, vayelchu Sedaima. That the angels left and they headed towards Sedaima on their mission. Va'avram odenu oimed lifnei Hashem. And Avram was still standing before Hashem. Ein amida el tefillah. Right? Amida refers to prayer. On this, the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel says, what does it mean? Va'avram oidenu oimed lifnei Hashem. Before he says about the 50 and the 45. Says the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel, Va'avram ad kidain boi rachamim aloit. The first thing he prayed for was Lot. And then I found the Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer with the same idea. The Pirkei de Rebbe Eliezer in Perek Chof Hei says, Hiskel mevakesh u'mischanein lefonav aloit ben Ochid. He first started to pray for Lot, his brother, right? Mibsarch al tisale. Shenemer ha'af tispet tzadik im Rasha. Are you going to sweep away the tzaddik with the Rasha? Now, Lot, remember we said a tzaddik is somebody that's kind to others. Remember, he risked his life to invite in the malachim. And don't forget, he was merited having a daughter. Remember, the pasuk says, Hashem said, let me see haketzakasa. If it's true, her cries. We know that there was a daughter that saw that there was a poor man who was dying from hunger because they wouldn't give him any food, and she clandestinely gave him food, and they set a spy on her, and they caught her. This is Lot's daughter, and they coat her with honey, and they let bees sting her to death. There was a grim judgment here. You want to be nice to others? We'll show you. Here's honey. And the bee stung her to death. That's what happens when you're nice and you're like honey. But such a girl that was nice and nefesh was the daughter of Lot. Right? So Lot was a tzaddik. So Avram prayed first for Lot and then afterwards. I still don't know. It's still by me is tzarech ian. It still by me needs a little bit study. Why doesn't Torah say beferish that he prayed for Lot? I don't know that. Now, many people learn this next part with disgust. Disgust and shock. And it really colors their view of Lot. What happened is the mob came to the house and demanded the strangers. They didn't know they were angels. It was illegal to have guests, so they demanded that Lot turn over the guests who were, strangers. So what does Lot say? Listen, I have a counter proposal. I have two daughters. Asher lo yadu ish, they're virgins. Oitziona esen aleichem, I'm going to give them to you. V'asilem ketov beinechem, you can do whatever you want. Molest them, do whatever you want. Rak la'anoshim o'el, these people, al tasu davar, don't do anything. Ki al kein bo b'tzel karasi, because of this they came to the shelter of my house, so I owe them protection. So don't take the strangers, take my daughters. Now somebody listens to this and it sounds like the wackiest thing they ever heard. You hand your daughters to a mob to save strangers? I mean, what kind of monster does that? Imagine, he says, look, my daughters, my own flesh and blood, take them, do to them whatever you want. A mob, rape them, do whatever you want, molest them. Just leave the strangers alone. Actually, the Ramban says this. The Ramban says, Ein ze el aroya leiv. This is only a cruelty of light's heart. The derech ha'olam adam moiser atzmei lahoreg al benosav al ishtay. A person gives his life to save his daughters and his wife. And here, he says, have my daughters to save strangers? I want to humbly explain what Lot did. Here I'm going to be Melitz Tov on Lot. You see, the Malachim told Lot that they're coming to destroy Sodom. 3 million people. It was a huge Hiroshima. 3 million people. Lot, Rashi tells us, stayed up the entire night trying to intercede on behalf of Sodom. So Rashi says, Shekol alayla hayamelitz aleim tovos. He pointed at the good that they do for each other, and there's good in Sodom in itself. The whole night, Lot was arguing on behalf of 3 million people. And what happens? The mob comes and wants to molest the angels. Lot knew that they were finished then. He's doing all he can to save Sodom. If the mob would grab and try to molest the angels, then they would be doomed. So Lot asked his daughters, are you willing to sacrifice yourself to save 3 million people? And the daughters agreed. And it's hinted to in the pasuk, because the pasuk says, "Rak la'anoshim ha'el al tasu davar." It doesn't say "Rak la'anoshim ha'eleh," but rather "Rak la'anoshim ha'el." These are angels. If you try to do something for the angels, you seal your fate. Now, there is proof that Lot's mission was to save Sodom. Because Lot accomplished what Avram Avinu wasn't able to accomplish. Avram Avinu stopped at 10, and then he gave up on Sodom. Lot would save, at least temporarily, 1/5 of Sodom. He would save Tzaya. He says, look, I can't reach the mountains. I'm afraid maybe I'll turn back. I'll become a pillar of salt. Let me go to Tzayar, Mitzarhi. It was founded later than Sodom. It didn't fill its quota of sin yet. It was founded 2 years later. Haloi Mitzarhi. It's younger. And Hashem was maskim and spared 1/5 of Sodom because of Lot. You have to understand who Lot was. He who saves one soul is like he saved the entire world. He saved an entire city. Imagine saving the entire New York. Imagine saving the entire Kansas. To me, that the girls were willing to give themselves up to a mob in order to maybe save the city, it's because of that there was Zeicha, that Malchus Beis David came from them. And David HaMelech, whose Tilim would protect Klal Yisroel throughout the ages. The Gemara says in Brachas, on Daf Nun Daled Amud Beis, it's an interesting Gemara. Gemara says in Brachas, Daf Nun Daled Amud Beis, Haroya Ishtay Shalait, if somebody saw the pillar of salt, so he makes 2 brachas. Gemara in Brachas Nun Daled, it's in Shulchan Aruch. Gemara says, Haraya ishtay shalait mevarech baruch dayana emes. Blessed is the true judge because she died there. And also you make a second bracha. When you see the pillar of salt, you say baruch zoicher tzadikim. Blessed is Hashem who remembers the tzaddikim. When you say the pillar of salt, you remember that she died, but Lot and his daughters were saved. Now the Parsha Pshat in the Gemara is, what's baruch zoicher tzadikim? It's referring to Avram Avinu, because that's what the pasuk says, that Vayizkar Elikim es Avram, Vayishlach Lot mitoich ha'afecha. Hashem remembered Avram, and he sent Lot out from the city that was being overturned. And the fact that it says Baruch Zoicher Tzadikim is because it's not just talking about in this generation, but throughout the generations, Klal Yisroel was saved because of the tzchus of tzaddikim. But Baruch Zoicher Tzadikim, the Parsha Pshat, this is the way Rabbi Leibel Katz learns, it's going on Avram. But I want to learn Baruch Zoicher Tzadikim is that Hashem remembered not just Avram, Hashem remembered Lot and his attempt to save the city and his saving of Tzayah. And he remembered the girls who were tzedekesses, who were willing to give themselves up to save the city. That's Baruch Zoicher Tzadikim. Now I want to tell you something. You know that in these shiurim, I talk a lot of times about names. I always study names. Moshe is the same letters as Hashem. Hagar is the same letter as Hagar. She was the ultimate ger. Right? I always talk Noach is because he found Chaim. The name Lot, Rivka, is Kirba because of what went on inside of her. But the name Lot always bothered me. Lot sounds very much like Liot, to curse. What kind of name is Lot? We said Hevel, which means vanity, is because he died in vain. But what's the name Lot? For the first time this year, I realized that Lot is also Lamed Vav Tes, spells Tes Vav Lamed, Tula, shade, protection. Like it says, don't touch these men, al kain bo b'tzel karasi, because they came into the shadow of my house, the protection of my house. The Targum says, what sel karasi? Tlali, it's the tlali de sherusi. It's the shadow of my abode. So Lot Tul means that he was a protection, a protector. And that's what we find by Lot. That he argued the whole night to try to protect the city. He indeed protected the city of Tzayah. He was even willing to give his daughters with their permission to protect 3 million people. By the way, we find earlier, remember we said that Lot was rewarded that when Avram said that he was Sarah's brother, Lot didn't reveal him. So he protected Avram's secret. Right? So that Lot is Tul, it's Shma Garim. A name foretells a person's destiny. I think that it's the first time I realized this, but I think that this is a true pshat in the name Lot. And then I had another idea, which I think is also an important revelation. When it says Baruch Zoicher Tzadikim, when we see the Netziv Melech, there's another tzaddik that Hashem remembered and spared Lot. And that's Lot's father, Haran. Remember, after Avram Avinu went into the Kivshan Aish, then Nimrod said to Haran, what about you? And Haran went into the Kivshan Aish, and he didn't deserve to survive. He got burnt. But he died al Kiddush Hashem. And it could very well be that Haran's giving his life to fire saved his son lights from the Gofris V'Eish of Sidon. And then Zeicher HaTzadikim would not only go on Avram, but it would go on Haran. On the Kiddush Hashem, remember we say that somebody dies because he believes in Hashem, he's a Kaddish. So the Zeicher Tzadikim is also not just Avram, but it's also Haran. And perhaps that's why Lot was spared. I hold this a very true shot. Now another point. But before I say this over, again I want to remind you that if you would like to support a future shiur, text me at 718-916-3100 or email me at rmmwsi@aol.com. Vayimru ha'echad ba lagur. What did Sidon tell Lot before they tried to crash into the house? Before the Malachim stretched out their hands and saved them? Vayomer echad ba lagur. One came to dwell amongst us. Vayishbeit shafait, and he's judging us. Ata neira lechamehem. We're going to do worse to you than them. Vayivtzeru beish b'leit ma'id, and they mobbed themselves on light. Vayigshu lishbar adelas, and they came to destroy the door. Sefer Vayidaber points out that this might have been the tipping point for Sidon. They owed so much hakaras hatov to Lot. Remember, the city of Sidon was captured by Nimrod, by Kedorlaomer, and his 4 armies. Who knows what Nimrod would have done to them? He took no prisoners. But Avram came to save Lot, and he saved Sidon. It's because of Lot that they existed. And now they're willing to destroy him? That could be the tipping point of why they were doomed and they were eventually nuked. Now, although there were many civilizations that were wicked, but the Ramban says the reason why Sidon was so singled out for punishment is because Sidon was in Eretz Yisroel. And to sin in the palace of Hashem is worse. That's why, by the way, talking in Shul is an aggravated sin. The Shulchan Aruch says a person is chayte and gadol avonim nesai. Why is it such an aggravated sin? Because it's happening in Shul. That's the palace of Hashem. Today, that's our mikdash ma'at. To do anything wrong in Shul, chas v'shalom, to fight, to talk during Chazaras Hashatz, to talk during Kriyas HaTorah, to talk during Kaddish, that's not just doing something wrong. That's doing something wrong in the palace of Hashem. That makes it that much more heinous. As always, we want to thank you for joining us and wish you a wonderful night and a wonderful Shabbos.